Andres from AA Sports. Welcome back to the channel and my final video covering the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup tournament. I recently made a video grading the Mexico national team for their performance throughout the tournament, and now in this video I will be grading every team's performance in this tournament. 16 teams competed in this year's 2025 Gold Cup tournament, and I will be giving a performance grade for every team going in the order of the commemorative shirt that is behind me. With that, let's get right into the final tournament grades. Starting off with Costa Rica, I am giving them a B grade. As expected, they advanced out of the group stage, finishing second in Group A. And while they did get eliminated in the quarterfinals, they were still competitive in this tournament. While they lost to the United States in the quarterfinals, they still made the Americans sweat in that game, tying the game 2-2 and taking them into penalties. It is a shame that CONCACAF goes straight to penalties without extra time, as who knows, maybe Costa Rica could have made magic happen in that game if it went into extra time. And let's also not forget about their performance versus Mexico, where they played a perfect park the bus strategy, just like they did versus Brazil in the Copa America. That got them a good result for their standards and all things considered. And they also had really good performances from their notable players. Alonso Martinez had 2 goals in this tournament. Ugalde, he had 3. And Keylor Navas, coming out of retirement to again be the starting goalkeeper. He might be 38 years old, but he is still an elite goalkeeper and had a great tournament and an exceptionally good game versus Mexico. Piojo Herrera, as the new head coach, has found a formula, some certain tactics and methods in certain aspects to bring life and some fight in this Costa Rica side. And I think they are in good hands for their World Cup qualifying campaign. B grade for Costa Rica. Moving on to the next team in Honduras, I am giving Honduras a B+ grade. The only thing that keeps it from being an A grade is that 6-0 loss versus Canada. Regardless of the scenario, a 6-0 loss is never good, and for that reason, I can't give them any sort of A grade. However, a B+ grade for the tournament is still very good for Honduras, and you got to give this team its deserved credit. After that awful loss in Vancouver, many fans, including myself, said that it was over for Honduras, that they would be eliminated in the group stage. But they proved everyone wrong. They played their way into the quarterfinals with wins against El Salvador and Curaçao, and they capitalized on Panama's complacency and mistakes to come back and win the game in penalties. And while they still ended up losing again versus Mexico, they were more competitive in comparison to the last time they played against them. Shout out to Honduras fans in Levi Stadium. After being eliminated, they were still very good sports about it, and they were still passionate about their team. They were by no means mad at how their team performed and made the semifinals, and they shouldn't be. My one concern with Honduras is that while Reinaldo Rueda saved his job, at least for the rest of their World Cup qualifying campaign, while Rueda saved his job by coaching his way to the semifinals, their primary style of play is not sustainable. In that semifinal game versus Mexico, they again played defense and were the more physical team. But once Raul got that goal, Honduras had no plan B. Playing physical football got Honduras into the semifinals. But if they want to qualify for 2026, Rueda and the team will need to have a stronger offense and find ways to win without just relying on a physical and defensive style of play. Now on to the third team, the United States. And the United States, D grade. And I know it sounds biased at first, given I am a Mexico fan, but I do believe a D is the honest and correct grade, despite the team making it to the final. U.S. Soccer walked out with nothing positive that they learned from this tournament. And if anything, there are serious red flags. And I know some American fans are already saying, oh, whatever, this was the C team at best. We didn't have our stars in Europe on the team. Yeah, and that is one of the major red flags. Outside of the players who were in the Club World Cup, guys like Pulisic, who is the team captain, decided not to play in the Gold Cup because they were tired and felt the Gold Cup is not as important to them. They didn't even at least make the effort to be in the stadium watching the final, to at least support the team due to being tired. You don't think some of the Mexico players sometimes feel tired? Even then, they will always fight to get an opportunity to play for La Selección, and they will ride and live by or crash and die by the Mexico badge. There is no motivation within the U.S. men's national team players and locker room culture. And the fact that Mauricio Pochettino allowed some of the players to sit out, he gave them permission to do that. He is enabling this culture. And that sends a message that we don't care. They will still say, fans will still find a way to twist it and say, this is the seed team. It's just the Gold Cup against small teams. Wait until we have our main players versus Japan and Korea. Really? Did you forget about how you flamed out in the Nations League finals? How are they ready to play against teams like Japan when they can't even win against Panama, Mexico, and Canada, who competed in this tournament? What the United States learned from this C team is nothing new. MLS and its players are still mediocre at best, and the red flags that have arisen show how the main US men's national team players lack motivation, are complacent, and the coach is a fraud who is allergic to teams in the top 30 of FIFA rankings. He still cannot win against them. If the US lose their September matches, Pochettino should be fired. If not, it will again send the message and show how the United States doesn't care. Moving on to the next team, Panama. And for Panama, yikers, D+. I'm giving them a D grade mainly because their performance in the quarterfinals. And the way they got eliminated was a dud, a stinker, and a papelón, como dicen en español. They dominated their group, winning all 3 games, and in their final group stage game, they destroyed Jamaica, only to follow it up by shooting themselves in the foot against Honduras. Panama was in control for most of that game, but the final 15 minutes were disastrous, and their penalty kicks were also atrocious. And they missed having Carrasquilla, who did not compete due to injury. Now, I don't think this is the end of the world for Panama. They are still one of the best teams in CONCACAF, and they will likely qualify for 2026. Thomas Christiansen is still a good coach, and by no means should he be fired. It's just at some point, a major mistake is bound to happen, and at some point, there will be a moment where football will humble you. And in this game, that was what happened. Christiansen's substitutions were not ideal, and Panama got humbled. Look for Panama to learn and grow from this, and for Thomas Christiansen to look for ways that result in this team having more ball possession in closer games, and to make things work with or without Coco Carrasquilla. Curaçao. I'm giving Curaçao a C+. I think they performed the way most people expected them to, in that they were not expected to make it out of the group stage. However, they were still competitive, and they almost and should have won against Canada. But unfortunately, Curaçao got CONCACAF'd by controversial referee calls and decisions. If the officiating was better and Curaçao had won versus Canada, you wonder if it would have given them more positive momentum entering the final group stage game. And then, of course, in the final game versus Honduras, Honduras got 2 absolute golazos to eliminate them. Curaçao, they performed as expected and probably could have been a little bit better, but they did not have luck on their side. And now the guest nation of the tournament, which raises a lot of questions. because of how they performed, how poorly they performed. Guest country of the tournament, Saudi Arabia. D- grade. This is one where you have to ask both CONCACAF and Saudi Arabia head coach Hervé Renard, why? Why is Saudi Arabia here and why even play? Now, I know some of their best players were not in this tournament as they were in the Club World Cup. So for Saudi Arabia, yes, this was genuinely a B team, borderline C team. But even then, there appeared to be very little fight and enthusiasm from the players to represent their country in this tournament. At least for the United States, who also brought a C team full of mediocre MLS players, at least those guys, players like Diego Luna and Sebastian Berhalter, were still passionate about representing the United States. From this Saudi Arabia team, we did not see the same. They lacked energy on the field, and there was absolutely nothing offensively from them. Going forward, CONCACAF, in my opinion, is better off giving the spot to another team in CONCACAF than to a guest nation that isn't even going to put effort into competing in the tournament. D- grade for Saudi Arabia. Moving on to the Dominican Republic, who qualified for this tournament for the first time, I am giving the Dominican Republic a C+. When making this grade video, I had already decided that the lowest grade I would give the Dominican Republic would be a C-. The reason why is because this was the Dominican Republic's first time qualifying for any major international tournament. For a country where baseball is king, the Dominican Republic was happy to finally be in a major football tournament and represented at the Gold Cup. They were playing with house money, and regardless of the results, competing in this tournament has set the bar to a new high for Dominican football. With that being said, the Dominican Republic did perform how most people expected them to, and they were eliminated in the group stage. However, they were still relatively competitive. In the opening game of the tournament, they gave Mexico a bit of a scare, scoring 2 goals in that game and capitalizing on Mexico's weaker starting fullbacks. And they got their first ever points in the Gold Cup in their draw result against Suriname. This showed they could still put up a good performance and should not be underestimated. The same way that Mexico slightly underestimated them. However, you also saw moments from the Dominicans where they did make mistakes that shot themselves in the foot. Against Mexico, they conceded 2 goals off corner kicks, leaving Edson Alvarez and Cesar Montes unmarked. And against Costa Rica, a bad turnover in the 85th minute resulted in Costa Rica scoring the game-winning goal that eliminated them from the tournament. The Dominican Republic played like their experience level, but it set the bar to a new high, and the team showed potential to grow and improve. With that, I am giving the Dominicans a respectable C+ grade. Canada. And oh boy, Canada. D grade. Canada dominated in their first game versus Honduras, destroying them 6-0 in Vancouver. But after that, their performances were extremely underwhelming. They dodged a bullet in their 1-1 draw versus Curaçao that saw Canada on the favorable end of the referee's questionable calls. And even though they were the better and more disciplined team versus El Salvador, in an 11 versus 9 scenario, you should be scoring more than 2 goals in a game like that. They got completely complacent after that 6-0 win, and it set them up for that disappointing game versus Guatemala, where Schaffelberg got an unnecessary red card. Head coach Jesse March continued with a very aggressive and questionable strategy with only 10 players. Canada got complacent and paid the price for their mistakes. It's a tough lesson learned for Canada, but hey, better to learn this tough lesson now than in the World Cup. Haiti. D. Offensively, they could not put a good finishing shot on their scoring opportunities to save their tournament hopes. Literally. It was the reason they lost against Saudi Arabia, where they not only had more shots on target, but also the majority of the ball possession in that game. In their 3 games, they had a combined total of 37 shots, with only 11 of them being on target. And they only scored 2 goals. They had one of the weakest offenses in the tournament in the weakest group. And this raises a serious red flag for Haiti as they enter the final round of CONCACAF qualifiers for 2026. Jamaica. And where do I even start? Just Jamaica, with how incredibly bad this was for them. How historically bad this was for them. Jamaica, F grade. F. After how badly this team performed, I am genuinely surprised the coaching staff has not been fired. Everything went wrong. Literally everything went wrong for Jamaica, especially in the midfield, which got outplayed against Guatemala and completely destroyed against Panama, a Panama side that Steve McLaren and the coaching staff for Jamaica swore they were better than. For the first time in this tournament, they also lost to Guatemala. And for the first time since 2009, they were eliminated in the group stage and were lucky to not finish last place in Group C. And with the players they have, the talent on this roster coming out of England, with players in the Premier League, they should have advanced out of the group stage. They should have easily beat Guadeloupe and Guatemala and been more competitive versus Panama. Instead, they were a team with talent that did less with it. And right now look like frauds entering the 3rd round of World Cup qualifiers. At this point, in my opinion, I think their hopes of qualifying for 2026 are shot. And they should begin the reconstruction process. Get younger as a team with a new coach and build up for 2030 at this point, because this current team right now is not going to take Jamaican football anywhere. The entire coaching staff should be fired. Their coaching, their changes, and style of play, they're not resonating with the players in the locker room or on the field. The midfield looked worse and worse in every game, and the defense had at least one head-scratching error every game. The team cannot continue like this, and Jamaica needs to reconstruct. F grade for the Reggae Boys. Moving on to El Salvador, I will give them a D-. El Salvador massively underperformed in the Gold Cup. They did not score a single goal in the tournament and were the only team to not score a goal. They received 2 red cards in the game against Canada, which were completely inexcusable and unnecessary. Only 1 good scoring chance was created, and they had a combined total of only 15 shots, with only 2 shots on target in the entire tournament. The defense, while conceding 4 goals, did have its decent moments that kept El Salvador's grade from being an F. But outside of the defense getting the team a scoreless draw versus Curaçao, the offense underperformed and did not play well. And the team lacked discipline and self-control, with 5 yellow cards, and that's excluding Santos Ortiz's 2 yellows versus Canada, which resulted in El Salvador going down to 9 players. You can't win games by not scoring goals. And for that reason, because El Salvador couldn't score a single goal, they, rightfully so, got eliminated in the group stage. And here we go. We've reached that team on the list. This is a team that I've been excited to talk about in this grades video. Guatemala. Guatemala. A grade, easily. This Gold Cup tournament was a historic success for the Guatemala national team. They started the tournament by beating Jamaica for the first time ever in the tournament. And for the first time in 30 years, they made the Gold Cup semifinals. Rubio Ruben had an excellent performance. I'll say the same thing for Oscar Santis. And even in the 2 games they lost versus Panama and in the semifinals versus the United States, they were very competitive. They only held Panama to 1 goal, and Guate was close to scoring themselves in that game. And against the US, they had so many close opportunities, but unfortunately for them, they were just unlucky. Luck was not on their side. Guatemala played their hearts and souls out. And if they play with this kind of energy and passion going forward, they have the opportunity to do something special. I hope that they somehow make the World Cup through the Interconfederation playoffs, because I would love to see their incredible fan turnout that we saw in the Gold Cup in 2026. As for Guadeloupe, D grade. Offensively, Guadeloupe was very good, scoring a total of 5 goals in the group stage. And all of their 5 goals were scored by a different player on the team. That's a pretty cool stat, seeing how basically everyone in some way contributed offensively. However, they were arguably the worst team defensively. They conceded a combined total of 10 goals, with half of those goals conceded against Panama alone. Guadeloupe has an offense, but they really need to improve the defense if they want to see better results. And you can say similar things for Suriname, who I am giving a D- grade. Their offense throughout the tournament was definitely the best part of the team. They scored 3 goals against Costa Rica and looked competitive offensively on counterattacks. However, they didn't really have more goals to show for it, which does leave more to be desired in their upcoming World Cup qualifying games. The number one reason for giving them this low grade, just like Guadeloupe, is the defense, which had serious flaws exposed. In their first game against Costa Rica, they conceded 2 penalties, which is never good in any game. And then against Mexico, their defending on corner kicks was awful, especially on the first of Cesar Montes' 2 goals, where he was left completely unmarked. To best describe the Suriname national team in a single sentence, it would be a competitive offense, but a very flawed defense. And with some of their notable Eredivisie players getting relegated with their clubs last season, things do not look on track to get better. Yikers. Moving on to the final 2 teams, starting with Trinidad and Tobago, and I am giving Trinidad an F. They got killed 5-0 against the United States and failed to beat Haiti even when they were down a player from a red card. And then they couldn't win to advance against a Saudi Arabia side that had absolutely nothing offensively. The fact that they performed so poorly in the weakest group in the tournament just makes it worse. I don't see how it is any other grade than an F. And now, the best for last, the final tournament grade for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup champions, Mexico. And I am giving Mexico an A grade. Mexico entered the tournament as the defending champions and the favorite to win the tournament. They had the best roster and one of the best, if not the best coach. And they won the tournament, beating the United States, their rival, in the final to win their 10th Gold Cup and send the message that they are the kings of CONCACAF. Raul Jimenez had a great performance, and his return to excellent form has been absolutely incredible. Edson Alvarez scored 2 goals in the tournament, and Marcel Ruiz and Gilberto Mora played really well alongside him. And the midfield finally sees improvement and looks like a positive aspect of the team now. And how about the wonder kid, Gilberto Mora? At just 16 years old, he is now the youngest debutant in Mexico national team history, the youngest to record an assist, the youngest ever Mexican player of the game. And with Mexico winning their 10th Gold Cup, Gilberto Mora is now the youngest player to win an international trophy in football history. This kid is something special and has a bright future. Along with the excellent performances of Raul and the starting midfielders, the defense for Mexico under Javier Aguirre's system has been excellent as well, and arguably the strongest part of the team. And it was the same once again in the Gold Cup. Mexico had the best defense in the tournament, conceding the fewest goals. Mateo Chavez and Julian Araujo received playing time and performed well, and you got to give Aguirre credit for integrating them into the team and his defensive system. And the defense also contributed offensively as well. With center backs Johan Vasquez, he got an assist in the final. And Cesar Montes having the tournament of his life, really. Cesar Montes had the tournament of his life, scoring 3 goals with a doblete, a brace versus Suriname. The defense contributed on both sides of the ball, and Mexico is slowly improving and looking better offensively, scoring more in the run of play as they advanced on in the tournament. And with other up-and-coming players like Elias Montiel and Rodrigo Huescas, as well as good leadership with Aguirre and Rafa Marquez, Mexico are the kings of CONCACAF and have positive momentum entering next year. Congratulations to my favorite team on winning their 10th Gold Cup. The Mexico national team, along with being CONCACAF Nations League winners, is bicampeón of the Gold Cup. A grade for the Mexico national team. There you have it, 16 teams and 16 grades for all the teams that competed in the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. And for an overall tournament grade, this 2025 Gold Cup was easily an A grade. We saw dominating performances, stunning upsets, incredible underdog stories, a 16-year-old making history, along with great broadcast coverage from Televisa and TUDN, and amazing fans and fan experiences at the games. And of course, obviously as a Mexico fan, for Mexico to walk out as champions just made it even better. Andres from AA Sports, leave a like and subscribe. Leave your opinions and your grades for each team in the comments as well. That will be all for this video. Again, leave a like and subscribe to support this sports passion project. Thank you all so much for watching, listening, and following my channel as I covered the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. And I look forward to doing this again. Thank you so much.